The Chargers took one on the chin this week as they hit a rough patch against the Rams in their preseason game 3. So let's break down my analysis of what happened in that particular game, what my takeaways were, as well as what decisions can be made from what we saw over the weekend. Let's get into it. All right, so the preseason game 3 is in the books against the Rams, and it was a really sloppy outing. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. It was a really sloppy outing. Started with some drama and some, I guess you can say, holding breath moments when it came down to what happened to Quentin Johnston. And our prayers up to him. I hope he will be all right. We'll break that down as well and what happened in that particular instance. But yeah, the Chargers didn't look good for like a lot of this game. In all honesty, they didn't look good at all. I think they took a step back, hit a rough patch. And the Rams to be playing second and third and fourth stringers, they look pretty solid. Kudos to their coaching staff and what they've been doing on that side of the locker room, was that side of the stadium, right? But yeah, the Chargers got to tighten some things up, man, because it's not looking good, and I'm not sure exactly what happened. I understand the NFL teams hit these patches where things just don't. You had that one week with just nothing want to go right? So maybe this was one of those weeks. Maybe it wasn't. But the Rams exposed some things on defense and as well as offense in a lot of spaces that would ultimately, lead to some question marks and some things the coaching staff are going to have to really hone in and work on. In all honesty, I think there's a lot to be said about what this particular game meant for the team as a whole, right? So I think that the Chargers have a lot to do, a lot of work to put in, a lot of things to tweak. And it should be a good week of practice, in my opinion, because coming off a loss like this, being it was the last minute, last drive of the game, last second Hail Mary pass that led to a touchdown, all that bell and whistle, right? But for the majority of this game was controlled by the Rams. I mean, in all honesty, you look at Stetson Bennett's stat line, you look at their stats as a whole, their time possession, the things they did in this game would indicate that they won this game. For us to be winning the game late in the fourth quarter, most people would have. Just look by the stat sheet would say that we did, they weren't expecting that. So, again, I think the Chargers coaching staff has a lot to work on, and it's one of those things where you want it to happen now versus later when the games really count. But a lot of film to break down, a lot of things to analyze, a lot of things to tweak and get better with in the next couple of weeks before the season really kicks off. So let's talk about exactly what happened in the game and what we can glean from it, positive and negative, and what to look forward to down the line. So starting off with clearly the score 23-22, last second drive, touchdown catch with very little time on the clock. I want to say it was less than 10 seconds. When it was all said and done, the Rams drove down and got a go-ahead score that ultimately won them the game. Kudos to Stetson Bennett, who played the entire game for them. Then Jimmy Garoppolo nor Matt Stafford played for them for that particular stretch of game. So he rocked the whole game, and he played pretty well. I mean, I can't give him credit. Got to give him credit. But again, it was a lot of things you have to clean up from the Chargers perspective that they should have not ended up in that position going against the third string quarterback, in my opinion. So again, what we take from it, positive and negative, we'll underscore here. But overall, man, I think the biggest, I guess you can say headline for me is the clear delineation between Trey Lance and Taylor Heinicke. Taylor Heinicke running the offense in this particular stretch, in this particular space, is clearly different than where Trey Lance runs it. I think Trey Lance runs the offense much better, and it runs cleaner, runs smoother. His skill set suits this particular offense way better than Taylor Heinicke's does. And I think that at this point in time, Trey Lance is the clear-cut quarterback number 2. And I think Taylor Heinicke might be the emergency quarterback yet, or be outright dealt or cut when the 53-man roster is actually, ironed out. I think with a very tough quarterback like Justin Herbert and a solid backup like Trey Lance, you might not need a third. Honestly, you might want to open that roster spot up to somebody else. Maybe carry 4 running backs, another position that you want to go deeper with, wide receiver, tight end, D line, O line, who knows? But I would think that with the way Taylor Heinicke's played in the last two preseason games, it's not been pretty. It's been very lackluster. It's been very clunky. He's been putting our receivers in danger. KLS took a real bad hit. And one of the passes he shouldn't have thrown, it was literally 4 to 5 defenders in the area, and he still threw it. KLS tried to go up and get it, took a nasty hit, almost knocked him out the game. Yeah, again, I'm not did not feeling Taylor Heinicke's status with the team at this moment. Honestly, it's not pretty. Wasn't pretty. Again, it's light and day when Trey Lance comes in and run the offense versus what Taylor Heinicke has done in 2 games. So, one sample size is one thing, could be have a bad day, but 2 is a trend and a pattern. So I think that Trey Lance is cleared number 2 in my opinion, and it should stay that way. I'm not even sure that one game in the final preseason game will determine anything different. I think that you can clearly see how the offense runs and much smoother with Trey Lance at the helm. So I think that decision is pretty much made in my opinion. That Trey Lance will be the number 2 quarterback in this particular outfit in 2025. So we'll see what happens with Taylor Heinicke. But moving on down the line, we can talk about the young boys, Trey Harris and KLS, Keandre Lambert-Smith. Once the offense finally got going, because like I said, we'll talk about Justin Herbert in the first team offense in that one drive in a minute. But for my money, from my understanding and my perspective from what I watching the game in its entirety, I would like to believe that once Trey Lance got in the game, he would actually finally decided to finally get some snaps, or the coaching staff finally decided to give him some snaps. Ironically enough, and I think Taylor Heinicke got knocked out early in his last series, and Trey Lance had to come in early. And once he came in, he started to gel and find KLS and Trey Harris in a large space. Trey Harris had 6 receptions for 85 yards, 8 targets. KLS had 2 receptions on 66 yards and 6 targets. Now, mind you, like I mentioned earlier, 4 of those targets that he missed was I think 2 or 3 of them were Taylor Heinicke passes that were ill-advised. So so I would like to believe that when he was open and he could, had a legit shot at the ball, he brought it in. So it wasn't any issue with drops in that space. But yeah, Trey Harris coming out party, finally getting targets. People were complaining about his inability to shine in preseason. Honestly, if you look at the numbers, they weren't throwing the ball a whole lot in the first 2 games. They threw the ball way more in this particular game than they have in the first 2. And that's like a lot due to the fact they couldn't run the ball. So they had to throw the ball more, and it showed what Trey Harris can do when he's finally targeted and finally can, get some opportunities to catch the football. And he made one catch on down the sideline on a go ball fade route type of opportunity, and he made the most of it. 2-hand toe tap over the defender. It was pretty. And what we've seen him do in practice, what we expected him to do as a second-round pick. Now, Keandre Lambert-Smith obviously, is the man and the talk of the town right now, and his ability. Very big time steal in the 5th round at this point. He's showing his mettle. Again, once he's getting his opportunities, he made another catch on the sideline as well. Another go ball to Trey Lance threw him, which I will give Trey Lance a lot of credit. His accuracy on these go balls. I would argue that his catch was just as good as Trey's on that sideline catch. 2-hand, got his feet and leg and side in, before he went out of bounds. Great catch as well. They reviewed it. They said it was a catch. So, we'll roll with it. And, but again, just the effort in this alone, even if it wasn't a catch, tells you a lot of what this kid is built of and what he can do if given the opportunity. So shout out to these boys and their ascension. And the future is bright with them 2 in-house as being rookies now. They're showing well as rookies, so they're only going to get better. The sky should be the limit for these boys going into the season. So, assuming health, we pray for that. And hopefully they can definitely, contribute in large space in this offense in 2025. So getting into, the bad news, Quentin Johnston's injury, talking about the first team offense. Now, the first team offense, in all honesty, they didn't run the ball well. Amari Hampton had 2 carries, which were 2 tough runs, although he didn't gain a whole lot of yards. There were 2 tough runs while he was in the ball game. Justin Herbert had some really refined throws, but this is what you expect out of him at this point. People can sully and discredit him and all that jazz, but if he was on your team, you would be singing his praises and thinking he was the best thing since sliced bread because the boy can play football. He can throw the ball. He can do everything. He's very cerebral. He's learned multitudes of offenses and done them seamlessly with little protection on his O line. So, the whole idea of Justin Herbert and whether or not he's an elite quarterback shouldn't be a question at this moment. If you just watch him throw certain passes and do certain things on the field, you will understand that everybody can't do what he does. Everybody can't do what he does. That's just the fact of the matter. And that you just got to watch the film and it'll tell you all it needs to tell you that he can get it done and he can get it done in large space. That one Pets pass in the double coverage that he threw to Country Lambert Smith, he threw it on it. Andre Lambert Smith can get it, and he brought it down with no worry. No worry. Now, in getting to the whole idea with Quentin Johnston's situation, now I'm gonna start by saying this: that those particular sidelines and those corners of those end zones in SoFi Stadium's field are not for the faint of heart. They're very hard in that area because I've seen J.C. Jackson tear a patella tendon in that space. I've seen other people bang up knees and ankles and things of that nature, fall hard on them and hit their head, and they've not been giving at all. And I think that's what happened with Quentin Johnston here when him being injured. I think that with him, that pass being tipped and being in the air, him trying to reel it in despite it, him tipping it in the air, allowed for him to, be hit. We can argue about the whole idea of whether he was defenseless or not. Clearly the ref didn't call it. That's one is the preseasons. A lot of calls have been missed in the preseason. I can be honest about that. So the fact that they missed that call, quote unquote, he was targeted, blindsided, defenseless, quote unquote. You can question all that, but the fact of the matter is he got hit, he went down, and they brought the card out, they brought the stretcher out and things of that nature, but he was able to get up on his own power and walk to the card and be put on the card and take him back to the locker room. So at this juncture right now, from what I understand, he has a concussion, likely being protocol. He probably done for the preseason, get himself healthy and get it back right and get back into practice as soon as he possibly can. But like I said, praise up for them in this situation. It's bad luck, and I think that, the field play a part into that because you see his head bounce off, and it's those corners of the end zones where it's uncharacteristically hard on surface. And again, both of those corners and end zones have claimed injuries for the Rams and the Chargers. And I think we all look back at it and should be studied to the fact that they maybe need to do something about what's under that turf that wise making it so unpleasant in those spaces. So I think that's contributes to Quentin Johnston's injury. But again, we'll see what happens. But we hope that he will, bounce back, with no lingering issues. So, prayers up to him, like I said. But overall, I think the offense, it looked pretty decent, moving the ball against the second team, which it should have been moving the ball against the Rams second team. But, they didn't get any touchdowns, only got a field goal out of their drive. So, something to work on there. And again, wasn't able to run the ball at all. So that leads me to my negative connotations of the game, in all honesty. And I think that what needs to be said loudly is the fact that the offensive line as a whole couldn't get any pushing against the run game. And then, mind you, they were going against their second and third, fourth string guys and couldn't get nothing done in the run game at all. So is that a testament to the backups that the Rams had, how well they played, or just the offensive line just weren't getting it done? You could, whatever side of the fence you stand on in that particular aspect of it, it wasn't a good look. It really wasn't a good look, in all honesty. So that's something they need to work on, even with the reserves, large space, your Andre Jameses, your David Sharps, and a few others that were out there. They, I would like to believe that we're at this point between injuries and non-starters, you were looking at third and fourth string guys, but even the first string guys couldn't get pushed against the second unit. So that's something to be said. Again, it wasn't a full compliment, but I think that it's something to be said about even the starting O-line not getting a push in the run game like they should against this second unit. So I think that's something that needs to be discussed, need to be working on. And if this O-line is going to be constructed the way it's constructed, I think that they need to figure out how they're going to be best served to run the ball in 2025, because that's what we're going to have to lean on with Rashawn Slater being gone. Second of all, the second team, Rams team, dominated the defensive starters in their first couple of drives. That was something to be noted as well. They got big time push in the running game, We saw Willie Lampkin and a bunch of other guys, getting big time push in the middle of this defense, and they ran the ball at a high clip against the starters, which shouldn't happen. Honestly, so that's something to be studied. And what your Sierra Tarts, your Jamar Caldwell's, and Deshaun Han and Naquan Jones and those guys, or Tito Albonio, what was going on in the interior O line, in interior D line, and they were getting pushed back and getting ran on in the interior this O line, and in our interior D line. It's something to be worked on as well. It's something you have to definitely look at the film and say we got to correct. That's for sure. Because I will argue that the second and third units, they look better against other teams than they did in the first team, and that's not how it's supposed to work. Honestly. So that's another negative that came away from this game. And the third most glaring one for me is the lack of pass rush. Caleb Murphy and Trevon Morris Brash played most of this game on the edge, and they didn't generate any pass rush at all for the entirety of the game. Tremont had a stack late on Stetson Bennett, which you thought might have sealed the game, but even in the fourth and long, they still was able to pull off a miraculous catch and keep the drive going and keep the game going. Ultimately won it. So them flashing, especially Caleb flashing the first two games and not getting anywhere near the quarterback in the third game is telling. It's telling. I don't know exactly what this means for their roster spots, but I think it pushes Tremont down for sure. And Caleb's fifth rusher spot is in question at this point. Because again, you can't have these. You're going to get second, third, and fourth stringers, and you having bad games. You just shouldn't be in the cards. You got to prove it in week in and week out that you can get it done if you want to be able to be on this roster. So I would argue that he took a hit. I think he has to bounce back in this last preseason game to hopefully show that he deserves to be on a 53-man roster, because both of these guys are both looking at slim chances, because most people don't carry 5 edge rushers. And if you do, you got to take from somewhere else. So to convince them that they need to take from somewhere else would be a question that you have to really, really say that I'm going to be there week in and week out, and I'm not going to have any drop off. So we'll see how things roll in that space. But holistically, man, it wasn't a great game. Like I said, although I will give Luke Graham his flowers, he did have a good punt return to put the Chargers up. But offensively, it wasn't a whole lot to show for it. Defensively, it was even less. Only thing I can really take from it is, like I said, RJ Mickens yet again had another good game. So did Tony Jefferson. Outside of that, I saw Junior Costa had a nice little goal line stop. But outside of that, man, it was a lot to work on. The defense got a lot to work to do, and offensive line as well. So, so we'll see how things progress in practice this week. We'll see how things move when it comes down to this last preseason game, and we'll be covering it all. I'm going to give my projections of my 53-man roster before the preseason game starts and over the weekend, and we'll talk about Mekhi Becton and Kyle Kennard and a few other guys that are injured and what's that going to mean for their status. So, as always, man, if you're looking for the Electric Shock Podcast, man, we're here. We can find us Electric Shock Pod on every platform, Electric Shock Pod, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and of course YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button. Let the YouTube algorithm know we do big things out here to help the channel roll. And we'll be back, in the next days to cover more Chargers news, man. But as always, man, we right here. If you need any questions asked, hit us up on our socials. And we'll be back tomorrow with another video, man. But in the meantime, between time, you always got to remember to do one thing well. You always got to remember to blow it up.